They said I was unstable and tried to take control of my estate, moved money behind my back, and signed a deal to sell land they had no right to touch. But what they didn't know was that every step they took pushed them deeper into a federal violation. And at 9:42 that morning, just as the machines were about to tear into the property, federal agents pulled in and shut everything down, turning their plan into evidence. And what started as control ended in charges that don't disappear. This is my revenge, and my name is Elowen. Chapter 1. I remember the first moment I realized someone was trying to legally erase me. I was standing alone in my kitchen on a Thursday morning in April 2024 in Boston, holding a cup of coffee that had already gone cold, staring at my reflection in the window like I was looking at a stranger. The light outside was too bright for how I felt. Everything looked sharp, defined, normal. That was the unsettling part. Nothing around me suggested my life was about to be taken away piece by piece. I was supposed to meet my sister, Vanessa Kincaid, for brunch. She had texted the night before saying she wanted to fix things, said she missed me, said family mattered. It almost sounded sincere, which should have been my first warning. I grabbed my coat, already running through what I would say to keep things calm, when my phone buzzed. Miles Carter. He did not text unless something was wrong. Do not go. Call me now. My chest tightened instantly. I called him without thinking. He answered on the first ring. Elowen, listen carefully, he said. Your sister has filed for emergency guardianship. They are claiming you are mentally unfit. Everything inside me went still. That is not possible, I said, but even as the words left my mouth, they felt weak. They have already submitted documentation, medical notes, behavior reports, records of missed obligations. This is already in motion. Missed obligations. That phrase hit something deeper than the rest. My own sister was trying to take my life away, and she was doing it legally. There has to be a mistake, I said. The court does not care about mistakes, Miles replied. They care about patterns, and right now it looks like someone has been building a case against you. When the call ended, the silence in my apartment felt heavy, like it was pressing down on me. I stood there for a moment, then walked back to the table and opened my laptop. My calendar loaded slowly. Canceled meetings I did not remember canceling. Appointments marked missed. Notes written in my tone, but something about the phrasing felt slightly off, like someone had studied how I spoke and gotten just close enough. I scrolled through, trying to find something familiar. Nothing felt real. I opened my email next. Sent messages I did not remember writing, apologies I did not remember making, confirmations for things I never agreed to. My breathing changed. For a second, a dangerous thought slipped in. What if I had actually forgotten all of this? What if they were right about me and I was the last person to realize it? I shut the laptop hard enough to make the table shake. No, this was not me. This was built. I opened it again, slower this time, forcing myself to look closer instead of pulling away. One email stood out. It had been sent late at night confirming the cancellation of a client meeting I knew I had attended. I checked the timestamp. Then I opened my call logs. That was when everything inside me dropped. At the exact time that email had been sent, I had been on a recorded call with that same client. I stared at the screen, my mind trying to catch up. That was not a mistake. That was impossible. Which meant someone had access, not just to my accounts, to my identity. I sat back, my thoughts shifting from confusion to something sharper. By the afternoon, Miles sent over the official documents. I opened them carefully, bracing myself. The psychiatric evaluation was signed by Dr. Helen Brooks, a name I had never heard before. The report was detailed, clinical, convincing in a way that made it feel real even when I knew it wasn't. It described memory lapses, emotional instability, declining judgment. It painted a picture of someone slowly losing control over their life, someone who needed intervention. I read it twice. Then I flipped to the signature page. My name was there, and the signature looked exactly like mine. I leaned closer, studying it, tracing the shape of every letter with my eyes. It was perfect. Too perfect. I opened my banking app without thinking. The numbers were still there, but something was off. A transfer I did not recognize, not large enough to trigger an alert, just enough to go unnoticed if I wasn't paying attention. My pulse started to climb. This was not just about making me look unstable. This was about control. Vanessa had never cared enough about me to check how I was doing, but she had always cared about control, about winning, about making sure she ended up with everything. If she succeeded, she wouldn't just control my finances, she'd control my decisions, my movements, my ability to say no. I'd still be here. I just wouldn't belong to myself anymore. That realization settled in slowly, heavier than anything else. A memory surfaced, one I had brushed off at the time. We had been reviewing paperwork for the Ashford estate months ago. I had explained the legal protections, the conservation restrictions, how no one could make changes without federal approval. She had acted uninterested. Now I saw it differently. She had been listening. I picked up my phone and opened our messages. Her last text sat there, untouched. "Tomorrow, let's just talk. I miss you." I stared at it for a long moment, then locked the screen. Later that evening, the official notice arrived. Preliminary hearings scheduled in 2 weeks. It was real, a legal process already moving forward without me. I sat there, letting everything connect. The missed meetings, the altered emails, the forged signature, the quiet transfers. This was not random. It was structured, careful, deliberate. If a stranger had done this, I would have fought immediately. But this was my sister, and that hesitation was exactly what she needed. I looked around my apartment, at everything that had always felt like mine. For the first time, it didn't feel secure. It felt temporary, because if they succeeded, I'd still be alive, just without any control over my own life. Chapter 2. I barely slept that night, and by the time morning came, whatever sense of control I thought I had left was already slipping through my fingers. Vanessa did not call me. She went public. My phone started buzzing before I even got out of bed. At first, it was just a few notifications, then more, then so many I had to flip the screen over just to breathe. Something was already moving, and I had not even stepped outside yet. I picked it up anyway. Vanessa was live. I watched for a moment without sound, just her face on the screen, calm and composed, the kind of calm that takes practice. Then I turned the volume on. "My sister needs help," she said. "I have been trying to protect her, but I cannot do it alone anymore." Her voice trembled just enough to sound real. She spoke slowly, carefully, building a version of me that sounded fragile, unstable, unpredictable. She never said anything outright cruel. That was what made it work. People filled in the blanks for her. The comments flooded in. "You are so strong. You are doing the right thing. I wish my family cared like this." I closed the app, but it did not matter. It was already spreading. Within hours, it reached into my life. Claire called me mid-morning. "Elowen, I just wanted to check something," she said. "Did you cancel the Henderson meeting?" "No," I said. "I confirmed it last night." There was a pause. "It shows canceled from your account," she said. "Do not change anything," I told her. "I will handle it." I opened my laptop again, my pulse already climbing. The meeting was gone. Not moved, not delayed. Canceled. And it showed I had done it. I checked the timestamp. It matched a moment I remembered clearly. I had been sitting at my desk, reviewing documents, focused, steady. At least, I thought I had been. That hesitation slipped in again, sharper this time. I stared at the screen longer than I should have, trying to recall something simple, Anything just to prove to myself I was still in control. The more I tried, the less certain I felt, and that scared me more than anything else. I forced myself to move. This was not confusion. This was someone building a case against me. My phone rang again. Olivia Reed. "Elowen," she said, her voice lower than usual, "there are transactions in your account that do not match how you normally authorize things." "What does that mean?" "It means someone is moving money in a way that looks like you, but it's not consistent. Small amounts, controlled, like they're testing what they can get away with." A cold feeling settled in my chest. "Lock everything down," I said. "Already done," she replied. "But this is not random. Whoever is doing this knows exactly what they are doing." Of course they did. They weren't guessing. They were building something. I pulled up my access logs and started going through them line by line. Most of it looked normal. Then I saw it. An unfamiliar device. Different location, different time. I clicked into it, my breath slowing as everything else sped up. The device was tied to a name. Julian Kincaid. I leaned back slowly. Vanessa was not doing this alone. That realization should have made things clearer. Instead, it made everything heavier. This was coordinated, planned. They weren't reacting to me. They were working toward something. I picked up my phone and called Vanessa. It rang twice before she answered. "Elowen," she said, softly. "What are you doing?" I asked. There was a pause. "I'm trying to help you," she said. "No," I said, my voice tighter now. "You are building a case against me. You are trying to take everything from me." "That's not true," she replied, just calm enough to make it sound believable. "You haven't been yourself, you know that." "Do not do that," I said. "Do not twist this into something it's not." "I'm not twisting anything," she said. "I'm protecting you." The line went quiet for a second. Then she added, almost gently, "You should really consider cooperating. It will make this easier for everyone." The call ended before I could respond. I stared at the phone in my hand, something inside me shifting. They weren't just lying about me. They were turning everyone against me, piece by piece, making it look justified. I grabbed a notebook and started writing. Times, dates, conversations. If they were building a version of me that looked unstable, I needed to build something stronger. But even as I wrote, that thought came back again. What if they were right? I stopped, my hand tightening around the pen. I hated that thought, because it meant this was working. My phone buzzed again. A message from a former client. "Are you okay?" There was a link. I opened it. A clipped version of Vanessa Live, cut down to the moments where she looked the most emotional, the most convincing. I watched it once. That was enough. This had already gone too far. They weren't just trying to control me. They were destroying my reputation, making me look unstable, making it easier to take everything from me without resistance. I went back to the legal documents, scanning for anything I could use. Instead, I found something else. A subpoena request. My name at the top. They were ordering a formal psychological evaluation. Court required. I called Miles immediately. "Tell me they can't force this," I said. "They can request it, and if the judge believes there's immediate risk, they can grant temporary guardianship before the full hearing." "Before I even defend myself?" "Yes." I exhaled slowly. "Temporary is enough," I said. "That's all they need." Because once they had control, even for a short time, they could reshape everything. Access, decisions, narrative, all of it. I looked around my apartment again. Same place, same life, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like something they were already taking apart. I opened my notebook again and wrote one more line. Find where it started. Then I paused, staring at the page. Because the more I looked at everything, the clearer something else became. This did not start recently. It had been building long before I noticed. Chapter 3. It didn't hit me all at once. It crept in slowly, like something just slightly off that I couldn't quite name. And once I felt it, I couldn't unfeel it. I stopped trusting everything, not just the documents, not just the timeline, but the people around me, including Miles. That part bothered me more than anything. He had been the one person I leaned on when things first started falling apart. Calm, precise, always a step ahead. Now it felt like he was a step ahead of me. Every time I asked for something clear, he gave me something strategic. Every time I needed a straight answer, he shifted the conversation. I called him anyway. "What aren't you telling me?" He didn't respond right away. "I'm building something," he said, "but I need time." "That's not good enough. You have to trust me." "I did," I said. "That's why this feels wrong." There was a long pause. "If we move too early, we lose leverage," he said. That word stayed with me after the call ended. Leverage. It sounded right. It sounded smart. But it also sounded like control. Later that evening, I went back through the files he had sent over. I wasn't even looking for anything specific, just trying to feel grounded again. That's when I noticed it. A timestamp. One of the documents he said he had just received was actually logged 2 days earlier. I frowned, scrolling back through the email thread. There it was again. Another file. Same pattern. Delayed. Not sent when he had it, but when he chose to give it to me. A small thing, unless it wasn't. My chest tightened a little. Every conversation started to feel rehearsed after that. Every delay felt intentional. I wasn't sure anymore who was helping me and who was quietly controlling what I could see. That same night, something else happened. I checked my phone before going to bed, just out of habit. There was a call in my log. Outgoing. A number I didn't recognize, duration listed as 0 seconds. No voicemail, no message, no memory of making it. I stared at it longer than I should have. Then I checked again. It was still there. And for the first time, it didn't feel like this was just about paperwork or timing. It felt like something closer. Like I wasn't just dealing with the situation, I was inside it. Around the same time, Sienna started acting differently. It was subtle at first. Short answers, avoiding eye contact, watching me when she thought I wouldn't notice. Then it got harder to ignore. One afternoon, I walked into my office early and stopped in the doorway. She was at my desk, going through my legal folders. She froze. "Aunt Claire, I didn't mean to." "What are you looking for?" Her hands tightened around the file. "I was just trying to understand things." "Then ask me." "I didn't want to bother you." It sounded practiced. Not exactly a lie, but not the truth either. I held her gaze for a second longer, then nodded. "Next time, ask." "I will." She stepped away from the desk, but the tension stayed behind. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head, the documents, the delays, the way things were being explained to me in ways that always sounded reasonable, just never complete. Guardianship, protection, stability, words that made everything sound safe. But underneath it, something else was moving. If they pushed this through, I could lose access to my accounts within days. Not eventually, not hypothetically. Days. That wasn't protection. That was removal. 2 nights later, there was a knock at my door. Late enough that I already knew it wasn't good. Sienna stood there, pale, shaking. "I can't do this anymore," she said. "What are you talking about?" "I can't lie to you anymore." She stepped inside quickly, closing the door behind her. "Who asked you to lie?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled out her phone and held it out to me. "Just listen." I pressed play. A second of static. Then voices. Vanessa. Calm, controlled. "We just need her declared unfit. Once that's done, everything transfers." My chest tightened. Then Julian. "The easement could cause problems." Vanessa again. "We'll deal with it after. The buyer won't know until it's finished." The recording stopped. For a moment, I didn't move. "What is this?" "They already took money," Sienna said. "A deposit." "From who?" "Daniel Reeves." The name hit hard. He wasn't careless. "How much?" "750,000. I let out a slow breath. "They can't legally sell that property," I said. "Not with federal approval." "I know. They know too." Something in me went cold. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't a misunderstanding. They had planned this. They were using the court against me, setting me up, building a version of the truth that would hold long enough for them to finish what they started. "This is fraud," I said. Sienna nodded. "They asked me to testify." "Against me?" She looked down. "They said it would protect the estate, that you weren't thinking clearly." "And you believed them?" "I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was protecting my future." I closed my eyes for a moment. They hadn't just built a legal case, they had built pressure around her. "You didn't say anything yet," I said. "No," she said quickly. "I told them I needed time." That mattered. It meant nothing was locked in yet. I took the phone back to her, my mind already moving faster now. Money had changed hands, legal pressure was building, witnesses were being shaped. This wasn't a mistake. This was a system. I handed the phone back to her. "From now on, you tell me everything," I said. "Everything they say, everything they ask you to do." She nodded. "I will." I believed her. Or maybe I just needed to. I sat down, pulling a notepad toward me, trying to make sense of it. Follow the money, follow the timing, follow the people who kept asking for trust while giving me less information. Because the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. If they had built this carefully, step by step, keeping me just far enough behind to stay in control, then the real problem wasn't what they were doing now. It was how long they had already been doing it without me noticing. Chapter 4. Once I saw it clearly, I stopped trying to prove anything. That wasn't the game anymore. The real question was never whether I could convince them I was stable. It was whether I could show, without saying a word, that everything they were doing was built on something that couldn't legally exist. I went back to the only thing that didn't change depending on who was telling the story: records. Buried in the trust documents was the piece they had missed. The Hawthorne estate had been placed under a federal conservation easement in 1994. I remembered it because I had flagged it myself during an audit years ago. It wasn't just a restriction, it was a lock. No demolition, no redevelopment, no structural changes without federal approval. And if you ignored that, it didn't turn into a negotiation. It triggered federal involvement. Fines, investigation, exposure. I read it again just to be sure. Then I leaned back and let it settle. They had built everything on top of something that could not happen. Either they didn't know or they thought they could deal with it later. That was their mistake. I changed how I moved after that. I stopped pushing back, stopped questioning every step. I signed what they gave me, showed up to evaluations, answered carefully, calmly, like someone who had finally accepted the situation. Vanessa noticed immediately. "She's finally cooperating," she said one morning, just loud enough for it to carry. I kept my expression neutral. "I'm trying to do what's best," I replied. She smiled, satisfied. That was the version of me she wanted, so I let her have it. Behind that version, everything shifted. I called Miles that afternoon. "You held back information," I said. "I did," he answered. "Why?" "Because I needed them to move first," he said. "If we reacted, they would adjust. If they moved, we could document it." "You've been collecting everything?" Every email, every draft, every change in language, he said. I needed intent, not just suspicion. And now? They've crossed into exposure, he said. Money changes everything. For the first time, I understood what he had been doing. He hadn't been slowing me down. He had been letting them speed up. Daniel Reeves became the pressure point. He wasn't emotional and he wasn't patient. He had wired $750,000 based on representations that were already starting to break apart. At first, his emails were polite. Requests for confirmation, clarification on permits. Then they shifted. I need execution within 72 hours, he said in a message that got forwarded to me. If not, I move to legal recovery. That wasn't a suggestion. That was a clock. Vanessa tried to contain it. Everything is progressing, she said on a call I listened to quietly. We're finalizing internal steps. You said that already, Daniel replied. What's actually changed? Additional review. I didn't pay for review. I paid for completion. I sat there listening and felt something steady settle in. This was exactly where we needed them. Under pressure, rushed, certain enough to act. We didn't slow anything down. We made it feel like things were finally moving. Miles adjusted timing in small ways that weren't obvious, just enough to keep everything tightening. Deadlines became real. Expectations sharpened. And Vanessa did exactly what I expected her to do. She pushed harder. We secure the asset first, she said in a meeting. We deal with consequences after. Julian hesitated. There are still legal questions. There are always questions, she said. That's not the point. It becomes the point if something fails. It won't, she said, her voice flat, because we're not giving it time to fail. That was it. Not ignorance, choice. She knew there were risks. She just believed she could outrun them. The next morning, I sat across from her again, calm, composed, exactly what she expected to see. You seem different, she said. I feel clearer, I answered. That's good. We're making decisions to stabilize things. What kind of decisions? Structural ones, she said. Nothing you need to worry about. I held her gaze for a moment. I trust you. It felt strange saying it, but it worked. She relaxed. And when people like her relax, they stop watching for resistance. That's when they move fastest. Later that day, Miles called. They scheduled it, he said. What? Demolition prep. 48 hours. I closed my eyes for a second. Permits? Filed, he said. Not approved, filed. They're going to do it anyway. Yes. I stood by the window, looking out at the property that had suddenly turned into a trigger point for everything. They think they can fix it after. They think they can control what happens next. But they couldn't, because once that easement was violated, it wouldn't stay contained. It would expand. Federal review, financial exposure, paper trails that couldn't be rewritten, and intent already documented. For the first time since this started, I wasn't reacting. I was watching them walk straight into something they didn't understand. Everything was in place now. Money transferred, deadlines closing, authority assumed without permission, and a decision about to be executed that would make all of that visible. I checked the time again. 48 hours. That was all it would take. Not for them to win, but for them to prove exactly what they had been trying to hide. They thought they were closing the deal. They thought they were securing control. But what they were really doing was triggering something much bigger than any of them had planned. And once it started, there would be no way for them to stop it. Chapter 5. By the time morning came, I wasn't waiting for anything to happen. I already knew it would. The sky sat low over the Hawthorne estate, gray and heavy, the kind of morning that made everything feel quieter than it should. But there was nothing quiet about what was about to unfold. I stayed back, far enough to disappear into the background, close enough to see every detail. Trucks lined the gravel road. Equipment rolled in one piece at a time. Men moved with routine confidence, like this was just another job on another property. Vanessa stood at the front of the house, perfectly composed, dressed like she was about to introduce something important, because she thought she was. A couple of cameras were set up in front of her, not major media, but enough to capture what she believed would be her moment. "This property represents a new beginning," she said, her voice steady, practiced. "A transition into something stronger, something sustainable." It almost sounded convincing, if you didn't know what was underneath it. Daniel Reeves stood off to the side, his attention split between the scene and his phone. He wasn't relaxed anymore, not like before. He kept checking for something, confirmation, reassurance, anything that would tell him this was still under control. It wasn't. Julian stood behind Vanessa, quieter than usual. His posture was stiff, his eyes moving toward the road more than the cameras. Waiting. That told me everything. The contracts had already been signed, money had already moved, the illusion was complete. Now it just needed action. One of the machines started up, the engine cutting through the stillness. The operator adjusted his position, lining up with the edge of the structure. Momentum. That was always her strategy. Move fast enough and no one has time to question anything. My phone vibrated once in my hand. Miles. "It's happening," I said quietly. "I know," he said. "Stay where you are." "They're about to start." "Not for long." I didn't ask anything else. I didn't need to. The machine rolled forward, metal arm lifting into position. Vanessa stepped back slightly, calm, confident, certain she was in control of everything in front of her. Then the sound came. Vehicles, not part of the plan. Several dark SUVs pulled onto the property, tires crunching against gravel with a kind of purpose that didn't match anything else that morning. People turned. The operator hesitated. Doors opened. Agents stepped out. Not rushed, not loud, controlled. That was what made it land. A woman followed behind them, folder in hand, her expression direct, focused. She walked straight toward Vanessa. "You need to stop immediately," she said. "I'm sorry, who are you?" "Federal compliance," the agent said. "You are in violation of a protected conservation easement." The shift was immediate. Daniel stepped forward. "What does that mean?" "It means this property cannot be altered without federal authorization," she said. "And based on the records we have, that authorization does not exist." His face changed. "You told me this was clear," he said, turning to Vanessa. She hesitated. "We filed permits. This is a timing issue." "No," the agent replied. "This is a violation." Another agent approached the machine operator, speaking quietly. Within seconds, the engine shut off. The sound dropped out. Just like that, everything stopped. "What happens now?" Daniel asked. The woman opened her folder. "We are initiating a federal investigation. There is evidence of misrepresentation tied to financial transfer and attempted unlawful modification of protected property." Vanessa shook her head. "This is a misunderstanding." "It is not," the agent said. More vehicles arrived, this time marked. No one lifted their cameras now. They just watched. Julian didn't speak. He didn't even look at Vanessa. He just stared at the ground like he already knew how this ended. Daniel stepped back, running a hand through his hair. "My money is in this. You told me this was secure." Vanessa's voice tightened. "It was supposed to be." That was the moment it broke. Not all at once, but enough. The words that followed came faster. Fraud, misrepresentation, conspiracy. They weren't accusations anymore. They were being documented. Final. I stayed where I was. I didn't need to move. Everything I had been trying to prove was happening without me saying anything at all. The deposit became evidence. The emails became intent. The timeline became proof. Layer by layer, it unfolded. Vanessa didn't hold it together. Not when Daniel stepped away from her. not when agents started separating people, not when the cameras, still recording, caught every piece of it slipping out of her control. Her voice raised once, sharp, defensive. Then it dropped. Then it cracked. Publicly. Completely. Later, when most of it had already settled into something official, something that couldn't be undone, she found me. I don't know how long she had been looking, but she walked straight toward me like she knew exactly where I would be. "I thought it was mine," she said. Her voice was smaller now, not the same person from earlier. I looked at her for a moment, at everything that had collapsed around her. "No," I said. "You thought you wouldn't get caught." She didn't argue. There wasn't anything left to argue. I turned and walked away. Not quickly, not dramatically, just done. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe without feeling like something was closing in around me. The lawsuits came after that. Asset freezes, investigations that reached further than she ever expected. Her name didn't carry the same weight anymore. Neither did anything tied to her. Daniel moved fast to recover what he could. Julian disappeared from anything public. And Sienna never reached out again. Not after the hearings. Not after everything became visible. In the end, it was never about proving I was right. It was about letting the truth exist long enough for them to expose it themselves. And once they did, there was nothing left for me to fight. If you were in my position, would you have tried to stop it earlier, or would you have waited, like I did, until there was nothing left for them to hide? If this story meant something to you, stay with me, share your thoughts below, and follow along for more stories that might feel a little closer to your own.